Hello, this is Ann Sticknoth, and I'm going to talk to you today about the DESE Blueprint document that is being shared with buildings. First, a word of caution. This is an attempt to take the 17-18 MAP assessment blueprint, match it to the spring 16-17 assessment data, and then align it to the new Missouri Learning Standards and R7 learning targets. Because we're in a transition year where the standards have changed and a new test is being given in the spring, it's really difficult to put together a document that clearly delineates the old and the new and makes sense of it. So essentially what I'm really trying to explain is that this is kind of messy. So I want to start at the beginning and walk you through the document so that you can make sense of what you're looking at. First, I'll talk about these vertical columns going across the top and explain what is in each of the columns. And then I'll talk about how to read the document left to right. First, you'll notice the reporting category in the first column. Second, you'll notice the strand or domain that's being tested. ELA assesses reading, writing, and speaking and listening. So those are the domains that will be assessed on the spring assessment. When you look at each domain is broken down a little bit further. In the example of reading, you'll see it's broken down into literary texts and informational texts. From there, it's broken down a little bit further as well. When you move over and you look at the point range and range of emphasis, this tells us that approximately 12 to 14 points on the assessment will be devoted to reading literary texts. That results in approximately 21 to 25% of the assessment being devoted to reading literary texts. If you look at the bottom, the same applies for informational texts. Approximately 12 to 14 points will be devoted to informational texts, and approximately 21 to 25% of the entire assessment will be devoted to reading informational readings. This tells us a couple of things. One, it tells us approximately half of the test will be devoted to reading. It also tells us that of the reading items assessed, approximately half of them will be literary and half of them will be informational. So it tells us that it's well balanced. Also indicates and gives us a heads up that we really need to be focusing our instruction on both types of text equally in equal amounts of time. I'm going to jump over here to the last column. This last column, you'll see a set of standards. These standards reflect the old standards that were assessed last spring on the 16-17 test. So if I look at this particular first standard, 4L4, this is the old standard, we see that our students received 80% of the points possible on the assessment. Now, you may be wondering, well, 4L4, how does that relate to our new learning targets and the new Missouri Learning Standards? We crosswalk that back to our current curriculum, and if we look at that particular standard, we know that standard actually is addressed by Learning Target 4R3A. In fourth grade, we're teaching that particular learning target in Reading Unit 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. So this particular target is one that repeats throughout all of our units, our reading units in fourth grade. When is it currently taught? Well, those units fall between September 18th and May 11th. So if I'm a teacher and reading this, what might be helpful is thinking about it big picture. If I'm thinking about this particular item, I'm going to go back. I'm going to see that it's a literary item. I then want to ask myself, well, how did our building do? If I look at the code in this last column, I can go to my building item analysis, find that code on the building item analysis, and compare how your building did or how your students did compared to that of the district. Then ask yourself, when is it taught or where is it taught? refer back to the where is it in the curriculum and when is it currently taught. So more specific information, including additional words of caution and conclusions you might draw, have been shared with building principals, but in general, this is how you read the document.